Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife review for you. Today we have the Kizer Theta. This is an Elijah Isham design, brand new from Kizer. You guys probably can look back and see I just did the unboxing of this a week ago, but it has been in my pocket every damn day since then, so I feel I've had enough time with it to do the full review, and I do want to get the review out quickly because I heard from the grapevine, probably the most reliable source in the subject, that the first run of these is somewhat limited, and once that first run is gone, if they sell super quick, there may be, a month or two gap before the next run is available. This is a full production knife. It's not a limited edition, but the first run was kind of small. So just getting that out there. If you guys are on the fence about one and you want one after this review, you should probably go get them. They're available almost all your major websites right now that sell Kizers. They're widely available at the moment, but I don't expect that to last. Talk more about the design of this knife. As I said, it is an Elijah Isham design. It's from his Simple series. It's the first one in the Simple series. Simple series means it's meant to be more of an EDC kind of clean design. Elijah does some amazing things. He's designed a whole lot of knives over the last few years. Very, very prolific young man. But a lot of them are more lean towards art than function. The Simple series is trying to lean more towards function than art, although this is a beautiful knife. I would say it's just as good looking as any of his other knives, but it is definitely a much more functional kind of design. It's beautiful in that simpler way, not like the Eschaton is beautiful in a very complicated, a lot of time and effort put into machining and stuff way. This is just a simple, beautiful knife, the Simple series. But I do really like the way it looks. I think it's a very cool design, and I'm very happy to see Elijah doing these kind of things, because I will say, I was going to save this till the end, but I love a lot of his knives, but I've never owned one because I've thought, am I really going to carry this thing? And they were expensive. This one, not expensive, $180. And I think it still has 90% of that Elijah Isham flair for a lot cheaper. Most of his are 300 and up. Most of his collabs, this is 180. Has most of that flair, and it's very useful. So a great design. I think it's a really cool knife that a lot of people should check out. Now let's do some specs before we get too much farther. So I'm going to overall length of 7.4 inches. You have a blade length of 3.125 inches, blade thickness 0.14 inches, and a weight of 3.9 ounces. For some size comparisons, we'll do a couple of standards and then two that it compares to pretty well. First of all, you have your Spyderco Paramilitary 2, a little smaller than that. Your Benchmade 940, a little shorter than that, but obviously a much thicker, robust, heavier knife than that. And lastly, one that I'm working into the standards here, because a lot of you guys have them, the Kershaw Knockout. It's actually not that far off that. It's a little short, that's not quite as tall, but it's actually more similar than you'd think to a Knockout. Doesn't feel that way in your hand or your pocket, though, I'll tell you that. Now, let's pick out a couple that it compares to pretty favorably, or pretty similarly, I guess I should say. You have the Tuya knife Envy. This is the gray one. This is another knife I carry a whole lot. And a knife this is going to be in a comparison review against soon, and it's going to be a very tough choice for me because I said I carried this in my pocket every day since I've gotten it. One of them that I carried in my pocket a whole lot before that, and probably will after too, once the newness of this is worn out. I have no idea which one of these I'm going to pick. Your ZT-0609. Very similar in size. Not too far off in price either. I think the 0609 is $220, something like that, so it's going to be a pretty tough comparison test. But as you can see, size-wise and stuff, very similar. All right, let's talk more about this knife specifically. I've already said I think it's a beautiful design, but the closer you get to it, the prettier it is. Just the milling and stuff. I love this milling around the pivot. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the knife. And nicely contoured all around. I like the milling on the pocket clip is probably my second favorite part of the knife. And this is the part people see sticking out of your pocket. So if they are looking close, they may realize you have a knife because it's not particularly deep carry. We'll get to that in a bit. But what they do see sticking out is very pretty. So that's nice. I like the machined flats on the blade and the stonewash. The stonewash Kizer stonewash always looks so good. It's just the hardware quality is very good. The quality on it was excellent. Lockup's really good. Well, not excellent. It's pretty good. I have a couple things. We'll get to that. Lockup is excellent, though. Blade centering was great. Now, the issue I had with it, and I think it's an issue that some other people had and don't realize that's the issue that they had. If you watch the unboxing video, I complained because there's oil all over it. Once I played with it for a little while longer, I realized it wasn't just there's oil all over it, it's that the oil that was in it wasn't that great. I don't know what it was. It was kind of gummy. It just seemed to be holding up the works a lot. A lot of people complain about a very weak detent. Not a lot. A couple people complained, like a couple guys on my Instagram, a couple guys in the unboxing video. And I complained about it a bit too. But once I tore it apart, got rid of that nasty oil, put in some 85 weight nano oil and some 10 on the detent track and things like that, it didn't seem like it had that weak of a detent anymore. I think the oil was so bad it was kind of gumming up the works. Does it have a strong detent? No. We'll get to that later, but there's a reason for it, and I understand why now that Kizer chose to go that way with it. But that was the only real quality issue I had with it that made it seem like there were more quality issues. It seemed like there was a detent issue. It seemed like something was not quite right. Once I cleaned it up and oiled it, now it's, oh my God, smooth. And the detent seems fine. So if you get one of these, get rid of that oil. The stuff it comes with ain't great, at least in this first run or my particular one. All right, now let's talk about the blade. The most important part of a knife, right? You want to cut some stuff with it. This is a pretty good slicer. I'm not going to say it's a world champion slicer. It's not terribly thin behind the edge. I think I measured out about 26 thousandths. I always caveat that with it's a very hard measurement to take, but that's what I got. But it is only 0.14 inches thick, so it's not terribly thick, and it is a very high flat grind, so it slices pretty well. One of the things I like about it is that it does have a pretty good tip on it. This is not like a terribly piercy-shaped blade, but if you do have to stab into something, you're not going to worry about snapping your tip off. It's a very robust tip. It came super sharp out of the box, no complaints with that. Kizer does a great job on their S35 VN. As I said, I've had this in my pocket every day this week, and I feel no need to sharpen it. It's been fine. I haven't even touched it up or anything like that. Now, talking about the ergonomics, it is a bit... I'm not short. It's just big enough for my hands, and it fits me very well. But I have large size gloves, but very skinny fingers. So if you have fatter fingers, you might be riding around down here or something like that, and that might be a problem for you. But for me, the ergonomics work great. It fits really well. You can choke up. You can use this little front flat part here. It's not a full-on finger choil, but there's no flipper tab sticking out, which is another typical thing of Isham's designs. You can use it, just be careful. You don't want to slide forward and cut your finger. And yes, forgot to mention, it does have a sharpening choil. Some people said, there's no sharpening choil on it on my Instagram. Yeah, there is. It's right there. It's just more of a gentle sweep than usual, but it works fine. Yeah, you can choke up. This blade is, maybe it would be nice to have some jimping up there, but this thing is so pretty. I kind of glad they didn't, because the jimping wouldn't look as good. It is just so pretty that's fine, and it works all right. I mean, you can definitely still, it's wide enough to use when you got to do some detail stuff. Now, the finish on it is very slippery. I don't find it to be an issue, and I'm normally the first guy that will, because my hands don't sweat. I'm a freak that way. I don't know what's up with that. Never have my entire life. Never had sweaty hands in my whole life. So they do kind of slide around a bit more. But the way this is designed, it's okay. It doesn't bother me. I've never felt like I was going to drop this. Maybe fiddling with it or something like that's the only time it's going to become an issue. If you've only got, 2 fingers on it, flipping it around, doing stuff, then that might be an issue. But as far as just actually using it, not a problem for me whatsoever. Now, carry. It carries pretty good. You've got not a deep carry pocket clip by any means, and it doesn't even try to be, but there's not that much sticking out, and what there is fairly thin. So it's okay. Where it is really good in the carry is the location of the pocket clip is excellent. It pushes everything off into kind of the fabric-y part of your pocket. There's hardly anything to slide past here, and it's got the typical Isham minimalist little flipper tab. And you don't have to worry about catching anything on the back here, because they do an excellent job of, it's very simple construction. There's no like extra jimping back here or anything. It's just got one standoff and the pivot, and that's it that holds it together, which I think is pretty cool. yeah, it works ergonomically. I think it's great. There's no danger of catching your finger on that blade down there. I'm pushing my thumb in really hard right now, and I'm not catching it. So now deployment. Since it's folded, this is a good time to do it. As I said, some people complained about weak detent. Once I cleaned it up, I don't have a complaint with it, and I get why. First of all, this is a tiny little flipper tab. If you had a really, really hard detent, it would hurt your finger to use this. It absolutely would. And there are benefits to that tiny little flipper tab. Some people may have preferred they made a bigger flipper tab and a harder detent. Okay, that's your choice. But then, as I've agreed with Elijah to call it the eye hole, his very distinctive design, kind of almost trademark hole now, would not be nearly as useful or usable. So now you have two different ways to open it. It works fine with the flipper tab. You do have to give it some authority. It's definitely not just a kabang kind of knife, like one that reminds me of it. Since I have it sitting right here, my 0609 has a very authoritative detent. This does not have an authoritative detent when you're using that flipper tab, but it works fine. I've gotten very used to it. You just have to give it a good long sweep as I screwed it up, because that hit my finger. I swear that wasn't just me messing up, or it being weak. It works excellently once you get used to it. And it's still probably mostly the primary way that I deploy it, but why that detent is the way that it is now it opens that spidey flick like a dream. And if it had a harder detent, that wouldn't work. So it's a compromise, and I get it. One thing that is absolutely not a compromise, again, once I oiled up these bearings, this thing is wow smooth. It's not completely drop shutty. You do have to give it just a little bit of a flick, but the silky smoothness of this. People say, the hydraulic feel. I don't think that even does it justice. It is so smooth. It's one of the smoothest knives I've ever used. One that it reminds me of, and it was one that you saw earlier too. A lot of people rave about the action on this. It reminds me of the Tuya Envy, which was a very limited run knife, maybe gone by the time you saw this video, probably is. It really reminds me, the feel of it, like it's maybe even it's a bit smoother than this, but doesn't drop as much. So of all my knives I'm regularly carrying right now, these are probably tied for the best. It's just such great action on this thing. It really, really is. I'm extremely addicted to the action on this. Addicted more to the closing of it than I am to the opening. Isn't that weird? It's just when you close it, you just feel nothing. It's just like you're watching it close and then you hear a click. I don't know how else to describe it. And as I said, the eye hole works awesome. You can thumb open it with that also. Let's see if I get it right this time. There we go. Sometimes it is thumb holing it. I keep screwing up and grabbing the lock bar up here, but that's because I'm a dumbass. It's not any fault with the design. So overall, what's my opinion? It's $180 for an Isham that looks like an Isham and works like an Isham and has all the Isham little clues. A lot of his other collabs are $300 and up. It's not limited production. I'm not worried about banging it up. I almost bought a Zeta, which is it's a weed-built knife. That's the overall look of it's somewhat similar to this, but it's larger. But it was one of 300, and I just thought, I'm not going to carry it if I buy it. Where this, for $180, I mean, if God forbid I lose it, I'd be pissed off that I lost the money, but I would be able to go get another one. And I really like Elijah's designs, and I don't know him well, but we exchanged some messages. I kind of like him personally too, and I'm just very happy to finally have my hands on one of his designs and to proudly carry it every day. And Kizer's a good company too. I've never had any problem with Kizer's. I've got lots of them, and it's just nice to I don't mind giving money to either of these people, especially Elijah. So I highly recommend this thing. I do highly recommend, if you get one, with that caveat that, especially from this first run anyway, that you take it apart and clean that oil out and replace it. It makes a world of difference. You don't have to use the same stuff that I use, but get that crap out of there that they put in it. I don't know what it was. I've never had a problem with that in a Kizer before. Maybe this knife, its design is just a bit more sensitive to the kind of oil that you use. That's also a possibility, but it seemed pretty gunky and crappy. But simple series is definitely simple. Simple construction, simple design, but beautiful. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Go out and get you one, man. You really should. It's if you are a Isham enthusiast at all, or if you just like a classy looking nice EDC knife, $180, not bad at all for what you're getting. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.